Chief Engineer Maya Chen stared at the broken fusion reactor with a look that most species in the galaxy had learned to fear. It was not anger, exactly. It was something worse. It was the look a human got when someone told them something was impossible. The Galactic Council Station, known as Unity Hub, floated in the cold space between three major trade routes. It was home to over 50,000 beings from dozens of species, and right now, it was dying. "The reactor cannot be repaired," said Coordinator Vexnal, his blue skin flickering with stress patterns. The Cathari was tall and thin, like most of his kind, and he had been running Unity Hub for over 20 cycles. He had seen many problems. This one scared him the most. "The core containment unit has cracked. Our own engineers say we have perhaps 3 standard days before total failure." Maya walked around the massive reactor housing, her magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor. She was short by human standards, with dark hair pulled back in a practical bun and grease stains on her uniform that she never seemed to fully clean off. Behind her, her team of 4 other Terran engineers spread out, each one examining a different part of the damaged system. 3 days, Maya repeated. She did not sound worried. She sounded like she was doing math in her head. "The nearest replacement core is 12 standard days away," Vexnal continued. "We have sent emergency signals, but the evacuation ships cannot possibly arrive in time to remove everyone. We estimate we can save perhaps 30% of the population before the life support fails." 30%, said Jake Torres, Maya's second in command. He was a big man with hands that looked like they could crush metal, which they sometimes did. "That's not good enough." "It is simple mathematics," Vexnal said. His voice carried the particular tone that many aliens used when explaining obvious things to humans. "The reactor cannot be repaired without proper parts. The parts are not here. Therefore, the problem cannot be solved." Maya stopped walking. She turned to look at the coordinator with those eyes that every species had learned to recognize. The eyes of a Terran engineer who had just been told no. "Show me the crack," she said. The damage was bad. Even Maya had to admit that. The containment unit was a masterpiece of Velthari engineering, grown from crystal matrices that took decades to form properly. A jagged crack ran through its center, already leaking radiation that the emergency shields were barely containing. "Crystal matrix construction," said Yuki Tanaka, the team's materials specialist. She was young, barely out of the academy, but she had a gift for understanding how things were put together. "Self-healing in minor damage scenarios, but this crack is too large. The matrix cannot reconnect across this distance." "What if we helped it?" Maya asked. Yuki frowned. "Helped it how?" "Humans used to do something similar with broken pottery, called it kintsugi. You fill the cracks with gold and make it stronger than before." Maya tapped her chin, thinking, what if we could create a bridge material, something the crystal could bond to? "The Velthari matrix is highly specific," said Dr. Ram Patel, who handled theoretical problems. He was older than the others, with gray at his temples and a reputation for solving puzzles that stumped everyone else. "It would reject any foreign material." "What about non-foreign material?" Yuki asked suddenly. She was staring at the crack with wide eyes. "Chief, look at the edge patterns. The crystal is still trying to heal. It's reaching out, trying to find its other half." Maya leaned closer. Sure enough, tiny threads of crystal were extending from both sides of the crack, stretching toward each other like fingers trying to touch. But the gap was too wide. They would never meet. "We give it stepping stones," Maya said. "Fragments of the same type of crystal, placed in the gap. The matrix should bond to them and they bond to each other." "Where would we find Velthari crystal?" Vexnal asked. His stress patterns had shifted to confusion, which was better than fear. "This is the only piece on the station." "Not quite," said Carlos Mendez, the team's youngest member. He had been quietly scanning everything with his portable sensor unit. "Coordinator, What's in storage bay 47? Vexnal checked his data pad. Confiscated materials from smugglers. Why? Because your sensors say there's Velthari crystal in there. About 6 kilos of it. The coordinator's skin went pale. That would be the tears of Velthais. They are sacred religious artifacts stolen from the Velthari homeworld. We were holding them as evidence for a trial. How sacred will they be when 50,000 people are dead? Jake asked. The silence that followed was heavy. Vexnal's stress patterns were doing things that Maya had never seen before. She could tell he was caught between duty and disaster. The Velthari will not forgive this desecration, Vexnal finally said. Using their holy objects for engineering purposes would be considered the worst possible insult. Would they forgive letting a station full of people die when we had the means to save them? Maya asked. Her voice was gentle, but her words were not. I cannot authorize this. Then don't. Maya turned to her team. Get me those crystals. I'll take full responsibility. Chief, Jake said carefully, that's theft of evidence and possibly starting a diplomatic incident with the Velthari. Is it theft if we're saving the things from being destroyed in an explosion? Maya shrugged. Besides, the Velthari crystals will still exist. They'll just be part of something bigger, something that saved 50,000 lives. If the Velthari have a problem with that, they can take it up with me personally. Vexnal watched the humans move with the kind of efficient speed that always surprised other species. They had made a decision and now they were acting on it, regardless of rules or consequences or proper procedure. It was terrifying. It was also, he had to admit, somewhat impressive. You understand, he said quietly to Maya as she passed, that even if this works, you may have created an enemy of one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Maya paused. She looked at him with those strange human eyes, the ones that seemed to hold both calculation and compassion at the same time. Coordinator, I've been an engineer for 20 years. I've worked on ships that everyone said couldn't fly, fixed stations that everyone said couldn't be saved, and built things that everyone said couldn't exist. You know what I've learned? What? Problems don't care about politics. They don't care about religion or tradition or who gets offended. They just need to be solved. She smiled, and there was something sharp in it. And humans are very good at solving problems. She walked away, leaving Vexnal to wonder if he had just witnessed the beginning of a diplomatic catastrophe or the salvation of his station. Possibly both. In storage bay 47, the tears of Velthais sat in their evidence containers, glowing faintly with inner light. They had been carved from the heart of Velthais itself, the great crystal mountain that the Velthari considered the birthplace of their species. Each one was worth more than most planets. Maya picked one up and examined it closely. It was beautiful, she had to admit. The crystal seemed to pulse with a soft blue radiance, almost like it was alive. I'm sorry about this, she said to it, but I've got 50,000 people who need you more than a museum does. The crystal, of course, said nothing, but Maya could have sworn it glowed a little brighter, as if it understood. Behind her, her team was already setting up the cutting equipment. They had less than 3 days to do what the best engineers in the galaxy said was impossible. For a human, that was practically a vacation. The makeshift workshop they set up in Engineering Bay 3 looked like a disaster area. Equipment was scattered everywhere, cables running across the floor like mechanical vines, and at the center of it all, Yuki Tanaka was very carefully cutting sacred alien artifacts into tiny pieces. The crystal structure is actually more complex than our initial scans showed, she reported, not looking up from her work. Her hands were steady despite the fact that she was currently committing what the Velthari would consider murder. There are microlattices within the main structure. If we cut wrong, we'll shatter the resonance patterns. Can you do it? Maya asked. I can do anything, Yuki smiled slightly. I'm just warning you that it's hard. That was the human way, Maya reflected. Complain about how difficult something was while already doing it. Other species would have spent days debating whether it was possible. Humans just started working and figured out the details as they went. Dr. Patel was at a holographic display, running simulation after simulation. I think I've found the resonance frequency we need. If we tune the bridge fragments correctly, the main crystal should accept them as part of itself. Should? Jake raised an eyebrow. Quantum mechanics is not my fault, Patel said dryly. But yes, should. The probability is about 73%. I've worked with worse odds, Maya said. Remember the Proxima Station collapse? You mean when you welded yourself to the hull because you ran out of safety tethers? Carlos asked. Yeah, I read about that at the academy. They still teach it as an example of extreme field engineering. They also teach it as an example of what not to do, Jake pointed out. And yet here we all are, Maya said, doing things we shouldn't do. Carlos, how's the containment shield holding? Degrading slowly but steadily. Carlos checked his readings. We've got maybe 60 hours before it fails completely, less if we stress it during the repair. Then we don't stress it. Maya pulled up a schematic on her data pad. We go in gentle, no sudden moves, no power surges like surgery. Since when do you do anything gentle? Yuki asked without looking up. Since there's 50,000 lives depending on it. Maya's voice went serious. This isn't like the usual jobs. We can't just bash our way through and fix whatever breaks. We get one shot. The team fell silent. They all knew what that meant. Humans were famous for their ability to improvise, to adapt, to find solutions where none seemed to exist. But they were also famous for their stubbornness, their refusal to accept defeat even when it was staring them in the face. Today, both of those traits would be tested. A soft chime indicated someone at the bay door. Maya looked up to see a delegation of 3 aliens she didn't recognize. They were tall, willowy beings made of what looked like living crystal, their bodies refracting light in rainbow patterns. Velthari, the owners of the crystals they were currently destroying. Oh, Maya said, this should be interesting. The lead Velthari stepped forward. Its voice was like wind chimes, translated by the universal system into flat standard. You are the Terran who authorized the desecration of the tiers. I am. Maya stood straight, meeting what she assumed were eyes. Are you here to stop us? We are here to understand. The Velthari moved closer, examining the work in progress. Our people have been contacted by the station coordinator. He explained your plan. And we find ourselves conflicted. The Velthari turned its crystalline head to watch Yuki work. Those fragments were once part of Velthais, our god mountain. They contain the memories of our ancestors, the prayers of millions, the history of our people. I know, Maya said softly, and I know that cutting them up is the worst thing I could do in your eyes, but those same crystals could save 50,000 people. Including 317 Velthari, the alien said. Yes, this is the conflict. Maya blinked. She hadn't realized there were Velthari on the station. Your people are here. Trade representatives, students, travelers. The Velthari made a gesture that might have been a shrug. The galaxy is large, our people are everywhere. Then you understand why I'm doing this. We understand your reasoning. The Velthari was quiet for a moment. We do not understand your certainty. You are attempting something that our own engineers say is impossible. The crystal matrix cannot be artificially bridged. This is known. With respect, Maya said, your engineers haven't tried everything. They've tried everything they know. That's not the same thing. You believe you know something they do not. Maya thought about how to answer. I believe that humans are good at finding the things nobody else thought to look for. We're not smarter than other species. We're not more advanced, but we're stubborn. We refuse to accept limits until we've personally tested every single one of them. And if you fail, if our sacred artifacts are destroyed for nothing, Then at least we tried. Maya met the alien's gaze directly. And when I meet your God Mountain in whatever afterlife exists, I'll explain that I did it trying to save lives. If Velthais is truly divine, it will understand. The Velthari was silent for a long moment. Then it did something unexpected. It moved to stand beside Yuki and extended one crystalline hand. "Show me where to cut," it said. "If our ancestors must be transformed, let it be done correctly." Yuki looked at Maya, who nodded. Together, the human and the Velthari began to work on the sacred fragments, two species separated by biology and culture, but united by the simple need to survive. "This is unexpected," Jake muttered to Maya. "This is engineering," she replied. "Problems don't care about politics, remember, and solutions don't care about species." By the end of the first day, they had cut the tiers into 312 precise fragments. Each one was shaped to match the contours of the crack in the containment unit, each one tuned to the specific resonance frequency that Patel had calculated. It wasn't enough. Looking at the simulation results, Maya could see that the crack was worse than they had initially thought. The crystal matrix was degrading faster than predicted, probably due to the radiation stress. "We need more material," she said. "The fragments won't cover the full gap." "There is no more," the Velthari representative said. Its name, Maya had learned, was Crystalline Voice of Dawn. "The tiers were the only pieces of Velthais outside our homeworld." "What about synthetic crystal?" Carlos suggested. "We could try to grow more." "It would take weeks," Yuki said. "And it probably wouldn't have the right resonance anyway. Velthari crystal is grown from living mineral. We can't replicate that." Maya stared at the simulation, her mind racing. There had to be something. There was always something. You just had to be creative enough to see it. "The crack itself," she said suddenly, "what's it made of?" "Nothing," Patel said. "It's an absence, not a presence." "But there's radiation leaking through. Energy is passing through that gap." Maya pulled up the sensor readings. "What if we could solidify that energy, turn the leak into a plug?" "That's not how physics works," Patel said slowly. "It's not how normal physics works." Maya grinned, and it was not entirely a nice expression. "But the Velthari crystal isn't normal, is it? Voice, you said the tiers contain memories. How?" The alien tilted its head. "The crystal lattice stores information in its quantum structure. Thoughts and experiences can be encoded into the material through meditation and ritual." "Encoded energy." Maya's grin widened. "What if we encode the radiation itself? Use the crystal fragments as guides to shape the leaked energy into a solid form." "You're suggesting we turn radioactive contamination into building material?" Jake asked incredulously. "I'm suggesting we use every resource we have." Maya turned to the Velthari. "Voice, could your people meditate on the crystals while we work, guide the energy patterns?" "We would need many more Velthari than the three of us." "You said there are 317 on the station. How many of them know the meditation techniques?" Voice went still, communicating silently with its companions. After a moment it spoke. "Perhaps 200 have sufficient training, but this has never been attempted. We could not guarantee the result." "I don't need guarantees," Maya said. "I need possibilities." The second day was a blur of activity. Word had spread through the station about what the Terran engineers were attempting, and volunteers had begun arriving at Engineering Bay 3. Not just Velthari, but members of every species on the station. They couldn't all help with the technical work, but they could bring food, run errands, and keep the rest of the station from panicking. The Velthari meditation circle was set up around the damaged containment unit. 200 crystalline beings sat in perfect stillness, their bodies glowing softly as they focused their collective will on the task ahead. "This is either genius or insanity," Patel said, watching the preparations. "With humans, there's usually not much difference," Voice observed. The Velthari had not left the engineering bay since arriving, helping wherever it could. "Is that an insult?" Jake asked. "It is an observation." Voice's tone was unreadable. "Your species accomplishes things that should not be possible because you do not understand why they are impossible. This is both your greatest weakness and your greatest strength." Maya listened with half an ear while she reviewed the final calculations. Everything was as ready as it could be. The crystal fragments were in place. The Velthari meditators were prepared. The tools were sterilized and charged. It was time. "Everyone ready?" she asked her team. 4 nods answered her. "Voice, are your people prepared?" "We are one mind, one purpose," the alien responded. "Begin when you are ready." Maya took a deep breath. 50,000 lives, 312 crystal fragments, 200 alien minds focused on the impossible. "Let's make history," she said, and stepped forward to begin the repair. The first hour was the hardest. Maya worked with steady hands, placing crystal fragments into the crack with surgical precision, while the Velthari meditation circle hummed with strange harmonics. Each fragment had to be positioned exactly right, aligned with the damaged matrix at the correct angle and depth. Around her, the team moved like a well-oiled machine. Jake handled the heavy equipment, carefully positioning the containment shields that kept the radiation from cooking them all. Yuki monitored the crystal bonding, calling out adjustments in real time. Patel tracked the quantum signatures, watching for any sign that the repair was taking hold. Carlos maintained the power systems, keeping everything running at peak efficiency. "Fragment 47 is showing resonance," Yuki reported. "The matrix is accepting it." "Good, keep going." Maya placed another fragment, feeling the strange warmth of the Velthari crystal against her gloved fingers. Each piece was unique, shaped by her team to fill a specific part of the gap. Together, they formed a three-dimensional puzzle that only humans would have been crazy enough to attempt. The Velthari meditation grew more intense. The 200 crystalline beings were all glowing now, their bodies pulsing in perfect synchronization. Maya could feel something in the air, a pressure that had nothing to do with atmosphere. It was like the room itself was holding its breath. "Energy patterns are stabilizing," Patel said, surprise in his voice. "The radiation leak is actually decreasing." "The meditation is working?" Maya asked. "Something is working." Patel adjusted his readings. "I'm seeing new crystal formation in the gap. It's not our fragments, it's something else." Maya looked closely at her work. Between the fragments she had placed, thin threads of what looked like solidified light were forming. They stretched from piece to piece, connecting them in a web of impossible geometry. "Voice," she called out, "what is this?" The Velthari's response came slowly, as if from a great distance. "We are giving our memories to the crystal, our thoughts, our experiences, our very essence. It becomes part of the matrix. You're putting yourselves into the repair. We are giving what is needed." Voice's glow intensified. "Is this not what your people do, sacrifice for the many?" Maya felt something catch in her throat. She had expected resistance from the Velthari. She had prepared for hostility, for obstruction, for angry demands that she stop desecrating their holy artifacts. She had not prepared for this. "Yes," she said quietly, "it is." She returned to work with renewed focus. Whatever the Velthari were doing, it was helping. The crystal matrix was accepting the fragments faster now, bonding with them at the quantum level. The energy threads were multiplying, filling in the gaps between fragments with something that looked like frozen light. By the end of the second hour, the visible crack had shrunk by half. "This is unprecedented," Yuki breathed. "The resonance patterns are actually strengthening. The new crystal is more stable than the original." "That's the human touch," Jake said with a tired grin. "We don't just fix things, we improve them." "And the Velthari touch," Maya corrected. "We're not doing this alone." As if in response, The meditation circle's harmonics shifted, becoming deeper and more complex. Maya could feel the sound in her bones, vibrating at frequencies that shouldn't have been audible. The energy threads brightened, weaving together into an intricate lattice that spanned the entire crack. Radiation leak is at 12% and falling, Carlos reported. Whatever they're doing, it's working better than our projections. Maya allowed herself a moment of hope. They were going to make it. Against all odds, against everything the experts had said, they were actually going to save the station. That was when the alarm went off. "What now?" Jake growled, already moving to the diagnostic panel. "Secondary fracture," Carlos said, his voice tight. "The stress from our repair is causing the crystal to crack somewhere else. Sector 7 of the containment unit." Maya felt her heart drop. They had been so focused on the main crack that they hadn't considered the structural integrity of the rest of the unit. By fixing one problem, they had created another. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad. If it propagates, we lose the whole thing." Carlos pulled up a holographic display showing the new damage. "We've got maybe 4 hours before total failure." "Can we repair it the same way?" "We're out of fragments." Yuki looked stricken. "We used everything on the main crack, there's nothing left." Maya stared at the display, her mind racing. They had come so far, they were so close. She refused to accept that it was over. "Voice," she said, "can your people reinforce the crystal without additional material, just using the meditation?" The Velthari's response was labored. "We are already at our limit. The main repair required more than we anticipated. We cannot sustain additional effort." "What if you had help?" Maya asked. "What if other species joined the meditation?" "Impossible. The technique requires specific neural patterns. Other minds would only create interference." Maya wanted to scream. Every solution led to another problem. Every step forward was matched by a step back. It was like the universe itself was determined to prove that this couldn't be done. Well, she thought grimly, the universe has never met a human engineer. "Patel," she said, "the energy threads, where are they coming from?" "The meditation. The Velthari are converting their mental energy into physical matter." "Could we do the same thing with a different energy source?" Patel frowned. "In theory, any energy with the right resonance pattern could be used, but the calibration would be incredibly complex. We'd need to match the quantum signature exactly or risk destabilizing the entire repair." "We have the station's power grid," Jake said slowly. "Plenty of energy there." "Wrong type. Electrical energy doesn't have the right frequency characteristics." Patel pulled up more data. "We'd need something more fundamental, something that resonates at the quantum level naturally." "Like what?" Maya's mind was spinning through possibilities. What kind of energy resonated at the quantum level? What did they have access to that could bridge the gap between physics and whatever metaphysical force the Velthari were using? Then it hit her. "Human emotion," she said. Everyone stared at her. "Chief," Jake said carefully, "I think the stress is getting to you." "No, listen." Maya pulled up the readings from the Velthari meditation. "Look at the energy signature. It's not just mental activity, it's emotional. Hope, determination, sacrifice. The Velthari aren't just thinking the crystal into shape, they're feeling it." And Yuki asked. "And humans are basically walking emotion factories. Every species in the galaxy knows that about us. We feel things more intensely than almost anyone else." Maya turned to Voice. "Is it possible? Could human emotional energy work the same way?" The Velthari was silent for a long moment. When it spoke, its voice was uncertain. "We have never attempted such a thing. Human minds are chaotic, unpredictable. They might help or they might destroy everything." "That's basically our species' motto," Carlos muttered. "I'll do it," Maya said. "I'll lead the meditation. I know exactly what emotions I'm feeling right now, and I promise you they're strong enough to move mountains." "Chief, you can't leave the repair," Jake protested. "You're the only one who can place the remaining fragments precisely enough." "Then someone else will have to do it." Maya looked at her team. "Yuki, you've been watching my technique. You can finish the main crack. I'll handle the secondary fracture." "With your mind," Yuki looked skeptical. "With everything I have." Maya started removing her work gloves. "Voice, tell me what to do. How do I join the meditation?" The Velthari hesitated, then extended a crystalline hand. "Take hold, open your mind, and do not hold back." Maya grasped the alien's hand. It was cool and smooth, like polished glass. She closed her eyes and tried to clear her thoughts, but her mind kept racing, calculating, worrying. "You must let go," Voice said softly. "Stop thinking, start feeling." Easier said than done. Maya had spent her whole life as an engineer, trained to analyze and calculate and solve. Feeling was something she did privately, something she kept hidden behind the professional mask. But 50,000 lives were depending on her. If feeling was what it took, then feeling was what she would do. She thought about the people on this station. The families, the children, the elders. She thought about the Velthari who had joined her cause despite every reason not to. She thought about her team, who had followed her into this madness without hesitation. And she felt it all. The fear, the hope, the desperate determination to succeed against impossible odds, the anger at the universe for putting her in this position, and the stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The love for every single life that hung in the balance. Something shifted. Maya felt a connection open up, like a door in her mind she had never known existed. Through it, she could sense the Velthari meditation circle, 200 minds working as one. And beyond that, something larger. The crystal itself, vast and ancient and alive in ways she couldn't comprehend. "I see you," she whispered. "I understand." The crystal responded, not in words but in impressions. It was damaged, hurt, dying, but it wanted to live. It wanted to be whole again. "Then let me help you," Maya said. She poured everything she had into the connection. Every ounce of emotion, every scrap of will, every bit of the stubborn human refusal to accept the impossible. And the crystal listened. What happened next became legend. The witnesses would later describe a light that filled the engineering bay, so bright that even the Velthari had to shield their eyes. They would speak of a sound that was not quite sound, a resonance that vibrated through flesh and bone and metal. They would tell of Chief Engineer Maya Chen, standing at the center of the meditation circle with tears streaming down her face and fire in her eyes. The secondary fracture sealed itself in minutes, not through fragments or physical repair, but through pure force of will. The crystal grew new structure from nothing, guided by human emotion and Velthari wisdom working in perfect harmony. But Maya didn't stop there. She could see the entire containment unit now, every weakness and stress point and hidden flaw. She could see where the original construction had been flawed, where age and radiation had taken their toll, and she could see how to fix all of it. "Let me help you be better," she said to the crystal. "Not just repaired, improved." The crystal agreed. The next 6 hours were a blur of impossible physics. Maya channeled enough emotional energy to power a small star, and the Velthari meditation circle amplified it into focused beams of reality-altering force. New crystal grew where old crystal had failed. Weak points were strengthened. Flaws were corrected. When it was finally over, the containment unit was not just repaired, it was reborn. Maya collapsed as the connection broke, caught by Jake before she could hit the ground. Her face was pale, her body shaking with exhaustion, but she was smiling. "How is it?" she croaked. "Better than new," Patel said, his voice filled with wonder. "The energy output is actually 15% higher than original specifications. Whatever you did in there, you didn't just fix it, you upgraded it." "Told you," Maya mumbled. "Human touch." She passed out. When she woke, she was in the medical bay, surrounded by flowers and cards from grateful station residents. Her team was there, looking tired but triumphant. "You've been out for 2 days," Yuki said. "The doctors say you should be fine, but you need to take it easy. Something about your neural pathways being temporarily overstressed." "Worth it," Maya said. Her voice was hoarse but strong. "The council is in an uproar," Jake reported. "Half of them want to give you a medal. The other half want to arrest you for unauthorized use of religious artifacts." "What about the Velthari?" Voice appeared beside her bed. The alien looked different somehow, brighter, more vibrant. "Our people have been in deep meditation since the repair, processing what happened, what we experienced. And we have decided." Voice's crystalline form pulsed with inner light. "What occurred in that engineering bay was not desecration. It was transformation. The tears of Velthais were sacred because they contained the memories and prayers of our ancestors. Now they contain something more: human determination, human hope, human spite against the impossible." "Spite?" Maya raised an eyebrow. "We felt it through the connection," Voice said, and there was something that might have been amusement in its tone. "Your anger at the universe for daring to threaten your people. Your refusal to accept any outcome except victory. It is a very human emotion, but now it is part of Velthais as well." "Is that a good thing?" "Our philosophers are debating this. They will likely debate it for centuries." Voice tilted its head. "But personally, I believe it is. Our crystals have always been about preservation, memory, the past. Now they contain something of the future as well. The drive to overcome, to improve, to never accept that something cannot be done." "You're saying we made your God Mountain more human." "I am saying that your species has left its mark on something that has existed for millions of years. And unlike most marks that humans leave, this one made it stronger." Maya laughed, then winced at the pain in her head. "I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not." "It is both," Voice said, "like most things about your species." Over the following weeks, the story of the Unity Hub repair spread across the galaxy. Engineers from 100 worlds studied what had happened, trying to understand how human emotion had been converted into physical matter. Philosophers debated the implications of cross-species consciousness merging. Religious scholars argued about whether the transformed tears were more sacred or less. But the 50,000 people who had been saved didn't care about any of that. They only knew that when disaster had struck, a small team of human engineers had refused to accept the impossible. They had used creativity and spite and sheer, bloody-minded determination to find a solution that no one else would have considered. Maya returned to active duty a month later. Her first assignment was a review board hearing about her unauthorized actions during the crisis. She walked into the chamber expecting to face disciplinary action and walked out with a commendation and a promotion. "I don't understand," she said to Jake afterward. "I broke about 30 regulations. I used stolen religious artifacts. I attempted an untested procedure that could have killed everyone on the station. How am I being promoted?" "Because it worked," Jake said simply. "And because the Velthari officially declared that you didn't desecrate their artifacts. You transformed them. Apparently, there's a big difference in their religion. And the regulations I broke are being revised." Jake grinned. "Turns out the council decided that rules that prevent engineers from saving lives are rules that need to be changed. You're being cited as the reason for a whole new category of emergency procedures." Maya shook her head, but she was smiling. "This is not how I expected things to go." "That's because you're thinking like an engineer." Jake clapped her on the shoulder. "You should try thinking like a human. When we face problems, we don't just solve them. We make the universe regret ever putting them in our way. Through creativity and spite. Is there any other way?" Maya laughed. She thought about the containment unit on Unity Hub, now infused with human emotion and Velthari wisdom. She thought about the crystals that had been transformed from sacred artifacts into living symbols of cooperation. She thought about all the people who had been saved because she had refused to accept that something was impossible. "No," she said finally, "I don't think there is." And somewhere in the depths of the Velthari homeworld, a mountain of living crystal pulsed with a new kind of energy. It was the energy of human determination, human hope, human spite against every force in the universe that said something couldn't be done. The Velthari called it a blessing. The humans called it engineering. Both of them were right. 3 years later, Maya stood on the observation deck of the Unity Hub, watching a fleet of ships arrive for the first anniversary celebration of the station's rebirth. The event had become a major diplomatic gathering, drawing representatives from across the galaxy who wanted to witness the famous crystal containment unit and learn about the miracle that had saved 50,000 lives. Chief Engineer Chen, a young voice interrupted her thoughts. Maya turned to find a group of students, a mix of species including 2 humans, a Kethari, and a small crystalline being that could only be a young Velthari. They wore the uniforms of the Galactic Engineering Academy. "That's me," she said. "What can I do for you?" "We're studying your repair of the containment unit for our thesis project," one of the human students said. "We were hoping you could answer some questions." "I'll try." Maya gestured for them to follow her to a seating area. "Though I should warn you, I'm not sure I can explain everything that happened. Some of it is still a mystery to me." The young Velthari leaned forward. "That is what interests us most. How did you know that combining human emotion with Velthari meditation would work? There was no scientific basis for the approach." Maya smiled. "That's the thing about engineering. Sometimes science isn't enough. You have to be willing to try things that don't make sense on paper." "But the risk," the Kethari student protested. "The calculations showed only a 7% chance of success with your method. Any other species would have chosen the evacuation route, which had a guaranteed 30% survival rate." "7% is not zero," Maya said, "and 30% meant letting 70% die. That wasn't acceptable." "To humans," the Kethari clarified. "To any engineer worth their tools," Maya corrected gently. "Our job isn't to accept the best available option. It's to create better options. When the universe says something is impossible, our job is to prove the universe wrong." The students exchanged glances. Maya could see that they were struggling with this concept, especially the non-human members of the group. The idea of ignoring probability calculations and trusting instinct was fundamentally alien to most species. "Let me tell you a story," Maya said. "When I was at the academy, I had a professor who taught a course called Impossible Engineering. On the first day, he gave us a problem that couldn't be solved. All the math proved it was hopeless. The best minds in the galaxy had tried and failed." "What was the problem?" the other human student asked. "It doesn't matter. What matters is what he taught us." Maya leaned forward. "He said that impossible problems are like locked doors. Most people see the lock and walk away. Engineers see the lock and start looking for keys. And human engineers, specifically, see the lock and start thinking about whether we really need to use the door at all." "You go around the door?" the young Velthari asked. "We go through walls, under floors, over rooftops. We dig tunnels and build bridges, and sometimes we just make a new door." Maya grinned. "And when none of that works, we get creative. And when creativity fails, we get spiteful. And spite, my young friends, is the most powerful engineering tool in the galaxy." "I don't understand," the Kethari said. "Spite is an emotion, not a tool." "For most species, yes, but humans are different." Maya stood and walked to the observation window, gesturing for the students to join her. "Look out there. What do you see?" "The gathering fleet," the human student said. "Ships from 30 different worlds." "And beyond that?" "Stars, nebulae, the galaxy." "The universe," Maya said softly. Vast, cold, indifferent. It doesn't care about us. It doesn't care about our problems or our needs or our lives, and that makes us angry. She turned to face the students. When I was in that engineering bay, trying to fix a crystal that everyone said couldn't be fixed, I wasn't just determined. I was furious. Furious at the situation, at the limitations, at every voice that had ever told me something couldn't be done. And I took that fury and I used it. To manipulate quantum energy fields, the Velthari asked skeptically. To refuse to accept reality as it was presented to me. Maya smiled. The energy manipulation was just the technical part. The important part was the refusal, the absolute, unwavering certainty that I would find a way, no matter what the universe threw at me. That sounds like stubbornness, the Kethari observed. It is stubbornness, but it's also something more. Maya paused, considering her words. Most species evolve to accept limits. It's efficient, it's safe. It prevents you from wasting resources on impossible goals. But humans evolved differently. We evolved to be angry at limits, to see them as personal challenges, to take offense at the very concept of impossibility. Why? The young Velthari asked. Probably because our homeworld was trying to kill us constantly, Maya said dryly. Predators, disease, natural disasters, each other. We survived by refusing to accept that survival was impossible, and somewhere along the way, that refusal became part of our basic nature. The students were quiet, processing this information. Maya let them think, remembering her own journey to understanding what made her species unique. Here's what I want you to take away from your thesis project, she said finally. The repair of Unity Hub wasn't a miracle. It wasn't luck. It was the natural result of putting human engineers in an impossible situation and telling them they had to find a way. Natural? The human student asked. It seemed pretty unnatural to me. Because you're thinking about the physics. Maya shook her head. Don't think about the physics, think about the people. 5 humans facing a problem that could kill 50,000 innocents told that there was no solution. What did we do? You found a solution, the Velthari said. We created a solution, out of sacred crystals, alien meditation, and pure human stubbornness. Maya's voice grew intense. We didn't accept the limits we were given. We didn't follow the rules. We looked at the universe and said, no, this is not acceptable. We will find another way. And then we did. But how? The Kethari pressed. That's what we need to know for our thesis. How did you actually do it? Maya laughed. That's the question everyone asks, and it's the wrong question. The how doesn't matter. What matters is the why. Why did we keep trying when all the evidence said to give up? Why did we risk everything on a 7% chance? Because you're human, the young Velthari said slowly. Because your species can't accept defeat. Close, Maya nodded approvingly. Because we take defeat personally. We don't just fail and move on. We fail and get angry. And then we try again, harder, meaner, more creatively. We spite our way to victory because losing feels like letting the universe win. That seems like a terrible way to live, the Kethari said. Maybe, but it's also why we're here, having this conversation, on a station that should have died 3 years ago. Maya spread her hands. Every impossible thing humans have ever accomplished came from that refusal. Every time someone said we couldn't do something, we did it anyway. Not because we're smarter or stronger or better than anyone else, just because we're too stubborn and spiteful to accept no for an answer. The students left an hour later, their heads full of new ideas for their thesis. Maya watched them go, feeling old and young at the same time. You didn't tell them the whole truth, said a familiar voice. Maya turned to see voice approaching across the observation deck. The Velthari looked different than before. Its crystalline form shot through with veins of golden light that hadn't been there 3 years ago. What didn't I tell them? Maya asked. That the repair changed you as much as it changed the crystal. Voice came to stand beside her at the window. You are connected to Velthais now. Part of its consciousness lives within you, just as part of your spite lives within it. Maya nodded. She had known this for a while, though she rarely spoke of it. Sometimes, late at night, she could feel the distant pulse of the God Mountain, could sense the prayers and memories of millions of Velthari across the ages. It was strange, but not unwelcome. Would they have listened if I told them? She asked. Young engineers from species that have never experienced anything like that connection. Perhaps not. Voice made its gesture of acknowledgement, but it matters for what comes next. What comes next? The galaxy is changing, Maya Chen. Word of what happened here has spread far and wide. Other species are beginning to ask new questions, not just how to solve problems, but why they accept limits in the first place. You think humans are influencing galactic culture? I think humans are infecting galactic culture. Voice's tone was dry. With your spite, your stubbornness, your refusal to accept impossible as an answer. Some call it a plague, others call it a gift. And what do you call it? Voice was silent for a long moment. I call it hope, it said finally. For the first time in a million years, my people are not just preserving the past. We are looking toward the future. Your emotion lives in our crystal now, and it whispers that nothing is truly impossible. Maya felt tears pricking at her eyes. She hadn't expected to change anything beyond saving the station. She had just been doing her job, solving a problem with whatever tools were available. But that was the human way, wasn't it? Change everything while trying to fix one thing, improve the universe out of sheer stubbornness, infect eternity with hope and spite and the refusal to accept no. So what happens now? She asked. Now we build, Voice said. Together, humans and Velthari and every other species that has learned to question the impossible. We face the problems of the galaxy not with acceptance but with anger, not with surrender but with spite. That sounds exhausting. Yes, Voice's form brightened with what might have been amusement. But as you told those students, that has never stopped humans before. Maya laughed and turned back to the observation window. The gathering fleet was dispersing now, ships heading off to 100 different worlds, each one carrying passengers who had witnessed the anniversary celebration, who had heard the story of how creativity and spite had saved 50,000 lives. Each one carrying a little piece of human stubbornness into the galaxy. No, Maya said softly, I don't suppose it has. Somewhere far away, in the depths of a crystal mountain on a world she had never visited, something ancient and vast stirred in its dreams. It felt the echo of human emotion, the spark of impossible hope, the fury of a species that refused to accept defeat. And for the first time in a million years, it smiled. The universe had given humanity an impossible problem. Humanity had solved it with creativity and spite. And now, slowly but surely, the rest of the galaxy was learning to do the same. It was, Maya thought, a pretty good legacy for a small team of engineers who had just been trying to do their jobs. She headed back to work. There were always more problems to solve, more impossibilities to disprove, more universes to spite into submission. After all, she was only human. And humans never knew when to quit.